Hey guys, Phil here. Today I'm going to be reviewing the Pro Staff RF97. This is my experience playing with the demo for a week while considering a new racket to switch to. For context, I'm coming from the perspective of a 4.5 level player with a one-handed backhand. First, let's talk about the first impressions and the general appearance. Honestly, this is one of the sleekest and best looking rackets I've seen. I found myself wanting to excel with this racket because I simply found it so pretty. The racket is topped off with a black matte finish, which really leads to an elegant appearance. The small white highlight stripes, along with the Federer signature, give it the perfect amount of character, in my opinion. Now let's talk about specs. The RF97 is 27 inches long, which is pretty standard for a racket. However, it's also 340 grams unstrung, which means it'll be around 357 to 360 grams strung, making it the heaviest racket I've ever played with. The beam width is also pretty thin at 21.5 millimeters. I'm not going to talk about swing weight or balance because I honestly don't know how to interpret those numbers, and they're easily searchable online. I usually find that with specs like that, it's difficult to quantify with numbers. You really need to just pick up the racket and play with it. While warming up, the first thing I noticed was that you really do feel the weight of this racket. This is kind of a mixed bag because the weight is super nice while driving through shots. You don't feel like your stroke will be pushed around by a heavy topspin ball. On the other hand, the weight also makes it super hard to hit shots out of position. Once you make contact behind you, you really have to muscle your racket back into position. I can guarantee you most people aren't going to be whipping this racket over their head like Nadal. This is a fairly common sentiment for this racket, but it really rewards good positioning, good footwork, and offensive point play. You really want to be moving forward, and in many ways this racket almost drags you forward into the court with your follow-through. Backhands and forehands feel very solid from a stability perspective, but you will definitely need to generate some of your own pace. Additionally, I found that hitting with serious topspin is a bit more difficult as it's hard to get that fast wrist flicking action. Serving with the RF97 felt very smooth and natural to me. Control is on point with this racket, but I definitely felt like I was getting a little less pop than usual. I also noticed that it was more difficult for me to generate spin on my kick serve due to the heavier frame. However, I think that the precision and feel far outweigh both of these factors, and I'm sure that after more time I would learn how to generate more pace. For flat servers, this racket would most likely be great. Now let's talk about volleys. Volleys were probably my favorite part of playing with the RF97 Autograph. As someone who can struggle with volley stability on faster shots coming at me, this racket felt rock solid in my hand. The feel was super crisp and I honestly felt impassable to net. I actually found myself coming to the net more often because I enjoyed the volley experience that much. I felt like the RF97 could be one of those rackets you keep in your bag to look at from time to time and play recreationally with for an hour tops. I personally couldn't see myself playing a tournament or a 2.5 hour match with this racket, as the wear on my joints would be extreme. Even after 1 hour of solid play with this racket, the joints in my fingers were sore from having to keep the racket gripped in my hand, which is something I've never experienced before. As another negative, the RF97 provides limited access to power, spin, and defensive maneuverability. So if you're a Nadal type player that likes to play defensive looping balls with heavy topspin, I would not recommend this racket. For the positives, the RF97 really does feel like a weapon in your hand when you're on the offensive. The plow through and rock solid stability almost draw you into the net where you can finish off points with crisp and clean volleys. I found myself going for my shots more and being more offensive with this racket, which I personally enjoyed because I think I can be a little complacent during points. All in all, I would only recommend this racket for a small minority of players. Aggressive players who envision themselves dictating 80% of the points they play. and you probably have to be pretty strong as well. This racket really struggles on defense, and that's why I eventually decided this racket wasn't for me, despite how much I love the serve and volley aspects.